Content warning. Episodes of Grey Matter may contain themes and depictions of extreme mental illness, traumatic bodily harm, and death. If you aren't in the right headspace to engage with those depictions right now, maybe this episode should wait for another time. Otherwise, proceed with caution.
Hello there. I'm not sure if you can tell by how uncharacteristically happy I am, but it's almost Halloween. And in the depths of spooky season, there's nothing all of us here at Grey Matter love more than sitting around a campfire to tell a few scary stories. Especially when you don't know exactly what you're going to get. Much like the gambler's fallacy of trick-or-treating, your proverbial bag may get filled with many more raisins, razor blades, and rocks than any of the good stuff. But each house, or story, gives you an equal chance of getting what you're really waiting for. Unless what you're waiting for is candy corn, in which case the door is behind you and the police have been called. I might have lost the metaphor there, but allow me to reassure you. While on previous Halloweens we've given you tapes about sentient pandemics and total bodily dissolution, this year we've decided to go 100% traditional. This tape is called Hollow. And it's the story of a single father trying to ensure that his one and only son has the best Halloween anyone could ever ask for, only to find himself facing fears that are a little more real than he was expecting. Hollow. Written and directed by Jonathan Inbody, and adapted from The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving.
Trick or treat!
Well, aren't you two a pair? One tall skeleton and one little ghost. Put you together and you've almost got a whole person. What's his name?
Oh, Michael. But we call him Ike.
Well, pleased to meet you, Ike. Or as much of you as I can see through your eye holes there. I'm Bill. Is he shy or,
Oh, Ike doesn't talk much. He and I use sign language. He's got a thing, a verbal thing.
Mm-hmm. Seems like you might have one too. Well, here, let me find you boys a couple of full candy bars. I hate to have to tell you, Ike, but your dad is nothing but skin and bones.
All right, buddy. Give Mr. Bill a thank you, thumbs up, and we'll head to the next house. Don't forget, we've got to get back into town before sundown.
Hey, Mr.
Crane.
Now, you folks aren't from around here, are you, Mr. Crane?
No, we're from Abbeville. We just came out to the country because the people are friendlier.
Oh, they surely are. Did you drive?
Yeah, the car's parked by town hall. Why?
Well, I'd start heading back if I was you, rather than walking farther out, I mean. Darkness sort of falls all at once around here, and the roads out here, oh, they get a little tricky at night.
Tricky?
Hard to navigate. A lot of blind corners. People don't drive too careful. Besides, nobody but troublemakers will be out tonight on account of the Horseman.
The Horseman?
Oh, just a local legend. During the Revolutionary War, Sleepy Hollow was kind of a hot spot. A good place for soldiers to lay low and store supplies before they shipped them down the Hudson. And naturally, that made it a target. So one night, a regiment of British troops snuck into town through the woods, along with a group of Hessians, that's German mercenaries. Now, the leader of the Hessians, rumors said he was a giant, bigger and stronger than any mortal man, and twice as cruel. He was known all over the coast for capturing enemy soldiers and giving them a real close shave with his battle axe. Anyway, him and his men almost burned Sleepy Hollow to the ground that night. And they might have done it too if a cannonball didn't take that Hessian's head clean off. Turns out his beloved reputation was so fearsome that he was all the soldiers aimed at. Give or take 100 years, it became a ghost story people told around the campfire. Folks started saying that they'd seen the headless horseman up in the hills, burning like a coal fire and riding a dead horse like the devil was coming up on him. Said he was looking for a head to replace the one Sleepy Hollow had taken from him. People say the fear those settlers felt centuries ago, and the fear everyone still feels, will always keep him alive. But it keeps him out, too, because according to the legend, he can't cross that covered bridge that goes into town. See, he never was welcome in Terrytown proper, only in the Hollow. It's a heck of a story, ain't it?
It certainly is.
And nowadays, people put jack-o'-lanterns out on the stoops to trick the horseman, just in case he happens to ride by with a hankering for a head. Anyway, a lot of parents think it's a good way to keep kids from wandering off into the woods or crossing the street at night. And it is good, because we've had more than a few folks go missing out here over the years. Now, no more than any other stretch of open road and thick forest, but just figured out to warn you that the night comes on quicker than you think.
Okay, we'll start heading back now. Thanks for the advice and the ghost story. If I want to avoid the horseman, I'd better keep my head on a swivel.
Yeah, just so long as you keep it attached. Now, happy Halloween, fellas, and you stay safe.
We turned to give Bill one last wave, then turned off his driveway and back onto the sidewalk. I could tell Ike was beaming, even underneath his ghost costume, and I couldn't help but smile too. He deserved a night like this. We both did. It was tough to be a kid. Ike had struggled socially before his mother left us, and in the year and a half since, things hadn't gotten any better for him. I did the best I could, under the circumstances, but it seemed to get harder and harder to raise him alone. He always loved Halloween, though, and taking him to the next town over, just far enough to avoid running into bullying classmates and condescending teachers, seemed to take just enough of the weight off his shoulders that he could act like his old self again. I felt freer, too. If driving 20 minutes out of the suburbs and into the country was all it took to avoid the sympathetic eyes of his classmates' mothers, I was all for it. It's not that they were cruel. It was almost the opposite. They all offered to help, invited me to PTA meetings, asked me out to coffee to see for themselves how I was doing. But as nice as it wasn't kind. It all had a certain edge to it, as if they needed to check in, as if I couldn't be expected to take adequate care of my own son. There was nothing to be said about it, of course, and they were only thinking of Ike. But it still hurt me. Maybe I just had a chip on my shoulder, but I thought sometimes I could feel their judgment. What kind of man lets his wife move halfway across the country to live with the man she had an affair with? As if I could have stopped her. As if being stuck in a toxic marriage wasn't worse than being a single parent. As if you can make someone be a mother that doesn't want to anymore. They felt bad for me, sure, but their pity was sharp. Not that they were entirely wrong. Maybe if I hadn't been such a coward. If I'd had some tough conversations before things got as bad as they eventually did. Maybe Ike would still have a mother that did more than just answer a weekly phone call. It would be a 10 or 15-minute walk back to town, but the colors of fall and the last streaks of the sunset would keep it pretty scenic. Fall felt so much more real in a little town like Sleepy Hollow anyway. I mean, we'd passed a field with 2 scarecrows and a pumpkin patch as we trick-or-treated. We ended the night with a ghost story from a local. How much more Halloween can you get? The sun was setting a little quicker than I thought as we started walking, and soon it started to get dark. Country dark. Ike didn't seem to notice, but I did. And when I heard a car come speeding up the road behind us, I pushed Ike a little further into the grass and stepped further off the gravel on the side of the road. Soon, headlights shined on our backs, and I thought I heard the car speed up as they got close to us. I tensed up, 1,000 pictures of car crash aftermath swirling in my head, and I felt my hand tighten around Ike's. The sound of squealing tires approached, and I dove to the side, pushing Ike down into the ditch underneath me as the car screamed past. A second later, my head was up, watching as a black muscle car streaked away down the empty road. You okay, buddy? I'm sorry I pushed you like that. I thought... I got scared. It looked like they were... Were they trying to hit us? Come on, let's get up and wipe some of this dirt off. I lifted Ike out of the ditch, brushing off his ghost costume as I checked his hands for cuts and scratches. I couldn't tell if he was upset with his face covered, but I was afraid he'd be able to tell how rattled I was. I knew what Bill meant now when he said the roads were tricky. Hell of a way to say that the people around here were reckless assholes. They couldn't have meant to hit us, not on purpose, but they certainly didn't care that we were there. I stepped up out of the ditch, then looked back to see Ike's jack-o'-lantern candy bucket was sitting overturned in the mud. Oh, jeez, I'm sorry, Ike. Let me get scooped back in. I'll have to leave anything that isn't packaged, but we can wash off the rest at... Oh. I looked ahead of us at where the road took a sharp turn. There were headlights coming. It couldn't be. But it was. The same black muscle car came roaring around the corner, picking up speed as soon as it hit the straightaway. Ike, come here. Stop down here with Dad. Now! The car kept speeding up, drifting across the double line at the center of the road and into the other lane. It was moving with purpose. I grabbed Ike and pulled him close, wrapping my arms around him in frozen terror. If I had to throw him down, get hit so that he could get away, I would do it. I'd do what I had to, even if it meant... The engine was deafening as the car swerved towards us. But as I stared at it, a second stretching to eternity, I saw the back seat driver's side window roll down. The gangly shape of a pimple-faced teenager leaned out with a carton of eggs in his hand, and he pelted us with a few eggs each as I stood stunned. Relief flooded over me. It was just some idiot kids, some punks that didn't know how much they had scared us. Then I looked down at the eggs, shattered and running down our costumes, and at Ike's frightened eyes behind his ghost costume, and all of my relief turned to anger. Hey! You could have killed us, you little assholes! The car screeched to a stop, almost fishtailing as it lurched to the side. Then, just as quickly as it had stopped, 4 teenagers came pouring out of it, leaving the car parked diagonally across the road with the doors hanging open. The one who had been driving was big, corn-fed farmhand big, with the shoulders of a high school quarterback and the brow ridge of a caveman. The others were lankier, but just as grotesque, and the one that had thrown the eggs was still grinning as they made their way over. I moved Ike behind me, then started to step up and out of the ditch. but the big one balled his hands into fists, and I thought better of it. He smirked, glancing back at his hyenas before looking down at me.
What did you say?
You're gonna get someone killed, driving like that on Halloween. Do you really want to spend 20 years in jail for running down a trick-or-treater?
Scared you, didn't I? Sorry about that. What are you, 40? Grown man and you're quaking in your fucking boots? What do you think, little guy? Did you piss your pants? Or did he?
Don't talk to him. Hey, let go of me.
You're lucky I don't kick the shit out of you. Hell, with how skinny you are, I could probably toss you in the next county.
Come on, Vaughn. Fun's fun, but we gotta get out of here before the cops come. Your dad's gonna...
You call the cops?
Not yet, Vaughn.
Didn't mean to scare you, little guy. Just tell your dad to stay out of the road next time.
Jesus. All right, come on, Ike. Let's get out of here. I finished scooping Ike's candy back into his bucket and tried to smile as I handed it back to him. I couldn't quite tell how he was feeling, if he was scared, stunned, or if the fear of it all hadn't really hit him. At least it was just eggs. I climbed out of the ditch and back onto the road, then looked back up at the corner where the muscle car disappeared. I remember being a teenager. The impulsivity, feeling like you were hot shit, thinking you were invincible. Thank God it was just eggs. 18-year-olds that don't know what death is might just be the devil's favorite. For now, Ike and I just had to get back to the car. After we drove back to Abbysville, after Ike fell asleep on the couch surrounded by candy wrappers, then maybe I just go ahead and have a heart attack. For right now, it had to wait. I hope you don't think your dad's a coward, Ike. Grown-ups don't usually fight other grown-ups, not if they can help it. Especially not if they're just kids. Or human piles of horseshit, like Vaughn. In the grown-up world, we let things like male pattern baldness and hereditary alcoholism take care of guys like that. You think a headless horseman's scary? Try some of that on for size. Ow! I hit my knee pretty hard back there. Leg feels creaky now. Promise me something, buddy. Promise you'll never get old. Are you doing okay after that? Situations like that can be really scary and, really stressful. And do you want to talk about it? I looked down at Ike, and he looked up at me, and I saw wet spots in the fabric at the bottom of his eye holes. Oh, buddy, come here. You're okay, I promise. We're both all right, and we're gonna go home, and you're gonna pick out a movie for us to watch before bed, okay? You can even pick out a monster movie if you want to. I know, Ike. It scared me too. It's gonna be okay. I couldn't guarantee that, though, could I? Not forever. Not in a world like this one. Sure, maybe I could try to keep him safe from car crashes, or falling down and hitting his head, or eating something poisonous, but there was only so much I could shield him from. Out in the big, bad world, there were school shootings, microplastics, the garbage-filled oceans churning up to a boil. Who could protect him from any of that? We stood there hugging for a minute or two, then started walking again. By now, the dark sky sat heavy. Clouds stretched out above us like a cold blanket. Give it 10 or 20 minutes more, and we'd be able to see our own breath. We passed the field of the scarecrows again, and in another couple of minutes, we'd pass the pumpkin patch. Then, at the edge of town, we'd walk through the covered wooden bridge that sat just next to the traffic bridge, and before we knew it, we'd be back at town hall and back in the car. There was something else, though, wasn't there? Some landmark I was forgetting? Something I had almost missed, that I just happened to glance over and catch with my eye. What was it? The sound of a distant engine snapped me out of my thoughts. A familiar engine. There was no reason for Vaughn and the others to come back here. At least, no good reason. I quickly looked up and down the road, trying to find somewhere to hide. There had to be somewhere to... Wait. There it was. The other landmark. Huh. How had I forgotten? Across the road, half covered in crawling ivy, was an ancient metal gate reading Sleepy Hollow Cemetery. I looked down at Ike. He hadn't reacted to the engine. Maybe he hadn't heard it or recognized it. Good. At least now, there was still a chance that I could get us off the road without scaring him. Hey, Ike! You want to walk through the graveyard? No better way to end a night of trick-or-treating, huh? Come on, I'll bet there's another exit somewhere down the road. It'll only take us a couple extra minutes. I looked down at him, and I could see him smile a little behind the sheet. I smiled too, then looked both ways and took us across the street, trying not to hold his hand too tightly or walk too quickly. When we reached the ivy-covered gate, I put a hand out and pushed it, then stepped back as it swung open. It moved so fluidly, as if it was weightless. Maybe all that rust was just for show. We started down the tree-lined path, and since there was no way for me to close the gate without making him wonder, we left it hanging a little bit open, just enough that if somebody looked close, they might have known someone went through. The path was narrow and overgrown, winding down into a large clearing. I could hear the crickets chirping as we walked down the small slope towards the open metal gate at the bottom, and I could see the shapes of the gravestones inside, silhouetted in the moonlight. Oh, think we're gonna see a ghost, Ike? Maybe that headless horseman that Mr. Bill told us about? Oh, looks like somebody's already been here, at least. See those lights up ahead? As we stepped through the gates, the small objects glowing yellow in front of us came into focus. They were pumpkins, carved into faces with a candle lit inside each one, and they were sitting in front of 5 or 10 different gravestones. Jack-o'-lanterns. Of course, to trick the horseman. I wonder who left these here. We kept moving forward, walking down the path that ran through the middle of the small cemetery. The place was old, quiet, and quaint. The sort of place that would be long since overgrown into invisibility, if there wasn't someone taking care of it. We passed the more modern gravestones and entered a section where the stones were old, cracked, and mossy. The dates inscribed on them went further back, the early 1900s, the 1800s, and rows of flat stone markers from the 1700s. This must have been the final resting place of everyone who died the night the town was burned, the night the Hessian came. A slight chill ran down my spine, and I looked down to see Ike staring at the graves in rapt attention. I suddenly got the feeling that soon he'd be coming home from the school library with books about the Revolutionary War. And I smiled. Maybe Vaughn and the rest of his idiots hadn't ruined the night after all. Man, you can really feel the history. What do you think, Ike? Pretty cool, huh? You want to take some pictures with my phone? No, I'm serious. Here. Ike pulled the bottom of his ghost costume up and over his head to reveal a beaming face as I handed him my phone. I couldn't remember the last time I had seen him this happy. I sat on a half-rotten bench as he walked around the cemetery, taking pictures of overgrown graves and the low-hanging, red-leaf trees. At his age, I'd have been petrified, but he was fascinated. He stepped in front of a collapsed stone mausoleum and crouched down, taking pictures of the dark shadows underneath the fallen pieces, then got up and headed for the outside edge of the graveyard. Not too far, okay, buddy? Start heading back this way. Oh no. Somebody's coming. Ike, get back over here. Now! Why don't we step back here under the trees? Wait and see who's coming somewhere they can't see us. Don't be scared, okay? I don't mean to. We just don't know who it is. I ushered Ike back into the shadow of one of the low-hanging oaks, my eyes locked on the end of the trail on the other side of the clearing. There was someone coming. I knew there was. I had heard the gate. With any luck, it was Bill, or a groundskeeper coming to... I heard footsteps in the leaves and shrank back into the dark, lightly bumping Ike. Then, I watched as 4 familiar shapes came walking into view, led by the dancing beams of flashlights. At the front, Vaughn lumbered like a bear, groggy from hibernation, and behind him, the lanky one was carrying a 24-pack of cheap, shitty beer. The other 2 were dawdling behind, joking and shoving each other as they followed. I silently took Ike's hand and guided him down behind the nearest gravestone as I crouched behind the next one over. We'll just stay here for a minute, okay? And as soon as they're looking the other way, we'll take off.
Can't believe your dad sprung for beer.
Oh, he'll do anything to keep me out of the house. And you were right, Fawn. Look at this place. Nobody but nobody is going to get caught dead up here tonight.
Nobody but the Headless Horseman.
I scowled from behind my gravestone. I glanced over at Ike, but a glimmer of light from behind me caught my eye. I turned my head to look through the shadow underneath the tree, and just past the edge of the forest, my eyes fell on a small clearing. There, a large, dead tree sat sagging over a small square of ancient stone masonry. Was it a grave marker? Some kind of commemorative plaque? Whatever it was, it hadn't been recently looked after. The grass around it was slightly overgrown, and 2 nearby candles were almost melted beyond recognition. Behind the stone square marking the spot, a sagging pumpkin laid in the early stages of rot. What was it that had caught my eye? I thought it was candlelight, almost, but both of the candles over the spot were unlit. Maybe it'd just been a trick of the light, what superstitious peasants had once called fairy fire. But as I stared, I realized it had given me the inklings of an idea. Hey, Ike, since Vaughn and his boys cost us some of our treats, why don't you and I give them a little Halloween trick? Think you could crawl back there and grab that rotted pumpkin for me? It'll be fun. I promise. He quietly crawled in the dark to the small clearing behind us, then grabbed the sagging pumpkin and brought it back to where I was crouching behind the grave. I looked it over, silently smirking, then looked back at Vaughn and his friends and did the math in my head. Finally, when they popped open their cans of shitty beer and started to drink, I threw the pumpkin. It hit Vaughn in the back and burst, splashing him with its rotten insides, and his friends jumped up and dropped their beers, looking all around them for whoever had thrown it. From behind the grave, I cupped my hands to my mouth and took in a deep breath.
Who dares mock the Headless Horseman?
Let's get out of here.
It's not a ghost. It's just a pumpkin.
I know, but I'm not getting caught with the beer.
I watched Vaughn's friends scatter, chuckling with self-satisfaction. But Vaughn didn't follow them. Instead, he took off his jacket and shook free bits of rotted pumpkin, then glared at where he thought it might have come from. He started slowly walking in our direction, out of the light, and I watched the silhouette of his hand go down to his pocket and come up with something sharp and gleaming.
Is that you out there? You and your dumb little brat? You should have gone home when you had the chance.
It's okay, buddy. Just stay quiet.
Folks like you don't belong out here. Soft folks out here You just can't cut it. So how about you come out now and we settle this, before I have to find you and slice you up like a couple of jack-o'-lanterns. It's gonna take a lot more than a pumpkin to scare me. Hello?
I looked behind me as the howling wind tore through the graveyard, and in the small clearing, the 2 melted candles were engulfed in pillars of blue flame. The stone square marking the grave cracked and burst upward, propelled by a flying burst of dirt, and from the hole in the ground, a gloved, grasping hand shot out. In seconds, one arm became 2, grasping for handholds in the dirt, and soon, the blackened, dirty coat of a Revolutionary-era soldier rose out of the ground. Through the jagged cuts and tears in the moth-eaten fabric of the coat and tattered shirt, I could see a heaving rib cage, dotted with dried-out strips of what once had been flesh. The massive figure rose to more than 6 feet, bathed in the blue glow of the brilliant candles, but the humanoid form's size and stature barely registered. Instead, my eyes were fixated on the collar of the ancient coat, which flapped in the howling wind, around only the rotted stump of what was once a neck. The headless, heaving thing staggered forward. Blue fire licked the edges of the blackened clothes, poured out from inside a chest burning like a furnace, and with 2 powerful hands, the thing reached up and tore open the stump of its neck to expose it to the open air. As I watched, the headless horseman took the first breath of a new life. I grabbed Ike and hoisted him over my shoulder, then ran out from behind the graves and back towards the entrance. I passed Vaughn, who stood gaping in stupefied horror, and continued to run. The horseman let out a lipless whistle from his open throat, and a mausoleum in front of us exploded as a skeletal horse burst through, covered in brilliant blue flames. I skidded to a stop, and the horse slowly circled, keeping us corralled as it snorted hellfire. Behind us, the horseman was still moving towards Vaughn, who had recovered his senses enough to lunge forward with his knife. The blade sank into the horseman's rotten flesh, then began to glow, burning Vaughn's hand and melting his skin to the handle as the knife turned white hot. Vaughn screamed, desperately struggling to rip his melting hand free of his knife. But before he could get away, the horseman reached out with both hands and clapped them both onto his head. The creature's fingers began to steam, sinking in through layers of Vaughn's burning skin. And when the hands violently pulled, the head came off with one sickening rip. I covered Ike's eyes as Vaughn's limp, headless body crumpled and collapsed. It smoldered and smoked, almost curling up as it burned like a trash fire, and the horseman strode forward through the smoke. He held out Vaughn's burning head in front of him like a lantern, gripping the hair with a gloved hand. Vaughn's eyes were open and glowing with blue flame, and when the head opened its mouth, more blue fire poured out through the words.
Such a delicious fear you have brought me. Nourishment, not the fleeting fear of a whelp, but the ever-present terror of adulthood. And it's endless. More than enough to satisfy my appetites.
It's you talking, isn't it? The horseman, with his voice through his mouth?
He is that which you fear. Helplessness, weakness, the failure to protect you. Your son.
You can't have him.
I want him not. He is but a morsel, and you are the feast. I need only but to prick him, and you shall bleed my bounty.
You want to hurt him to get at my fear?
Yea, verily.
Well, I hate to break it to you, but you gotta catch me first! I darted into the narrow gap between two rows of graves, holding Ike tight to keep him from bouncing as the skeletal horse reared up to follow. It galloped after us, trailing hoofprints of flame, then swerved off when it reached the gravestones. The rows were too narrow for it to navigate, with more than enough places for me to dodge and weave, so as long as I got to the other side of the graveyard before it did, I'd have enough of a lead to work with. Vaughn's head whistled and the horse swung around to pick up the horseman, giving us a few more precious seconds towards the path. Where was it that Bill had said the horseman couldn't follow? The covered bridge into town? I wasn't sure we could make it, but I'd be damned if I didn't try. Maybe I wasn't much of a fighter, or a soldier, or a superhero, but if there was one thing I could do, it was make a run for it. And if cowardice had merit badges, I was about to earn one. By the time we reached the edge of the cemetery, I could hear hoofbeats thundering after us. They were only a few seconds behind. As I ran, I tried to think over my options when I reached the bottom. Should I try to block the gate, trap them inside? Maybe flag down a car? Try to hide? As I ran, I saw headlights shine up the path ahead, then turn as a car backed out into the road. I waved my free arm frantically, trying to get the driver's attention, and when a head peeked out the open window, I recognized it immediately.
Hey, you folks all right? What are you... Jump in! Jesus, get in!
Take Ike, please! Put him in the front! The bridge. Go to the bridge.
I am way ahead of you. What happened here?
Your guess is as good as mine. Did you say jumping Jesus back there?
I didn't want to swear in front of you. Oh, forget it.
Bill put the pedal to the metal as we fishtailed around a corner, desperately driving towards the safety of the covered bridge. Ike jostled in the front seat, holding on for dear life, and I reached up from the back and pulled his seatbelt on. Then I turned to look out the back windshield. The horseman was still riding after us, burning blue and holding out Vaughn's head like a smoldering lantern. Even going 60, he was gaining on us. Can't this thing go any faster?
Not without killing us. Look, there's a bridge.
The next 10 seconds stretched to eternity. I could see the skeletal horse snorting fire as it charged ever closer, locked burning eyes with Vaughn's severed head, watched as the open wound at the horseman's neck expanded and contracted in furious breaths. Then, finally, I heard the tires move from pavement onto wood, and the car was plunged into pitch blackness as the covered top of the bridge came over us. Behind us, the skeletal horse stopped on a dime, and the head dangling from the horseman's hand swayed back and forth, spitting up fire as it silently screamed. Oh, holy shit! We made it. We made it, Ike. How's that for a Halloween scare? Thanks for the assist, Bill.
My pleasure. I figured I'd check to make sure you made it back to your car all right. I just didn't know what I was signing up for.
Ike, you okay? Yeah, I'm all right, buddy. I promise.
Not to worry you, but what's he doing?
I glanced up at Bill in the rearview mirror, then followed his gaze back to the far end of the covered bridge. There, the horseman had dismounted his steed and was raising Vaughn's burning head up above his shoulders. He lowered it, putting it into place atop the stump of his neck, and I watched as skin and sinew flashed up to knit the pieces together. With a flash of blue flame, the head was grafted on, and it turned back and forth atop the horseman's shoulders, as if he was trying it on for size. Finally, he looked ahead at our stopped car and took a menacing step forward onto the covered bridge. I thought he couldn't cross the bridge, Bill.
Maybe that's what he needs the heads for.
Maybe the legend was only half right. Bill, stay with Ike. If things go bad, start driving and don't stop.
What are you gonna do?
What I should have done from the start. I'm the one you want! Come and get me!
The scent of your fear is exquisite. I can only imagine the taste.
I'll bet. You know, people underrate fear, but it's a hell of a motivator. I'm sure you know that already, but how about this? In the 200 or 300 years you've been on the ground, fear's changed a little. Do you scare me? Of course you do, but not nearly as much as everything else. You know what's really scary? What keeps me up at night? Climate change. Anti-vaxxers. Jackbooted freaks goose-stepping in the White House. Those can, and do, hurt people. They could hurt my son. And compared to all of that, you're less than nothing. I mean, what are you, really? A boogeyman? The monster that jumps out at the end of a hallway at a haunted house? All of us living now, every single one of us, we spend all our time trying to hold that real fear back. Keep it from controlling us, consuming us. But if that's what you really want, I'll hand it right over. Hell, I'll open the floodgates. You really want to feed on my fear? That's what you'll get. Because at the end of the day, you're easy.
This delay is meaningless.
Not a delay, asshole. A warning. The horseman stopped in front of me, close enough that I could feel the heat of his flames singeing my eyebrows. He stared at me with Vaughn's eyes, showing more doubt than I'd ever seen from their true owner. Then, slowly, he raised his gloved hands to the sides of my head, but he hesitated before he touched me. What's the matter? Scared you can't take it? 2 fiery hands clamped down on the sides of my head, and for a second, I was burning. I could feel blue fire consuming me, dancing through my mind and scorching neurons as my vision went white. And when I felt the skin on the sides of my head begin to sizzle and sear, I let everything go. All of my fears, my insecurities, my worries and anxieties and terrors poured out of me. And in a moment, I was gone. Everything inside me was being torn out, greedily sucked into the burning blue flames to feed the fire. And the hands on my head seemed to bulge and grow. He was taking everything, growing in power and stature and... No. I felt his hands twitch, try to pull away, but they were stuck. I pulled up everything I had left, every childhood fear and unremembered nightmare, and let him choke on it. You wanted to gorge yourself? Let's fill you to bursting. The hands on my head started to writhe, steaming and hissing as the gloves melted away to reveal skeletal hands. And a whistle like a kettle coming to boil burst out of Vaughn's head as it melted to a skull. The horseman started to scream, as much as something without a mouth can, and its clothes tore apart and flaked away to join a swirling cloud of growing smoke. With one final swell, a pillar of blue flame rose, sucked inward, and exploded outward, extinguishing the hollow bones of the horseman like a match in the wind. The hands holding my head clattered noisily to the ground, joining a pile of char-black bone. And afterward, merciful silence filled the empty night air. I can't believe that worked. Ike! Oh, hey, buddy. I'm okay. Ow! Watch the burns.
Are you all right? What happened?
Bill, I have absolutely no idea how to answer that question.
Fair enough. Was he really... was he the real... Ow! His bones are hot. It's like touching a stove.
Maybe you ought to leave them there for a minute. Better yet, take them back where they came from.
I think your hair turned white around his handprints. I guess I better call an ambulance. Or somebody to deal with those burns.
Just make it quick, Bill. It's still Halloween. And Ike and I have an appointment at home with a scary movie.
Hollow was written and directed by Jonathan Inbody and adapted from The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving. It was edited by Jeffrey Lavin, with music composed and performed by Samantha Hunt. Crane, the narrator, was played by Justin Pope. Bill was played by Dean Puleo, and Vaughn and the Horseman were played by Eric Miller. Additional sounds for the Horseman were provided by Sean C. Sanders.
Gray Matter is a Word Search Media production. Any similarities to real people, places, or things is purely coincidental.
If you like the show, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And support us at patreon.com/graymatterhorror.
Be kind. Rewind.